So there are a lot of weird sports curses out there. The curse of the Bambino played the Boston Red Sox for a long time. The Billy Goat curse played the Chicago Cubs for a long time. As a White Sox fan, big fan of that. But today we're going way back. Before Patrick Kane, before Connor Bedard, before the UC even. We are going back to the days of the origin story of the Chicago Blackhawks, namely their first ever coach, Pete Muldoon. This is the Muldoon curse. Okay, picture this. The NHL just expanded to the United States. That's right, America, baby. Rah! What's a kilometer? And the Chicago Blackhawks are born. The team is owned by this guy, Frederick McLaughlin, a coffee magnate, military man, and honestly, a walking HR violation. So he hires this dude, Pete Muldoon, to be the first coach in Chicago Blackhawks history. Now, Pete was a respected hockey mind. I mean, this guy really knew the game, a true artist of hockey. And the first season, not bad. The team finished 19-22-3. Solid, but not great. They were probably out there playing in actual ponds, dodging prohibition raids. But McLaughlin, yeah, he didn't like not great. He fires Muldoon after one season. And here's where hockey turns into a Stephen King novella. Now, as Muldoon's leaving, legend has it, he mutters a curse. This team will never finish in first place. Boom! Right there, a whole team hex. And here's the thing. For the next 40 years, the Chicago Blackhawks would never, not once, finish in first place. Not in the original Six era, not during the Great Depression, not even during World War II. Not once in 40 years. Even when they had great players, like the Bentley brothers, Max and Doug. Legends like Bill Mosienko scored 3 goals in 21 seconds. Not even, arguably, the greatest Blackhawks of all time, Stan Mikita and Bobby Hall. They had all these legendary players, Hall of Famers even, and they still couldn't break the curse. They could not break it. Okay, let's break this down. Just how bad was this curse of Muldoon? Well, how do you define bad, you may ask? Well, this was legendary, franchise in a blender stuff, folks. From the 1927-28 season up until the 65-66 season, the Blackhawks finished first 0 times. That's 40 years. You know how long that is? That's 3 failed reboots of Batman, 4 American Wars, and 8 different jerseys. Let's look at some lowlights, shall we? In 1930-31, the Hawks finished second in the standings and made it to the Stanley Cup final against the Montreal Canadiens, only to lose. But hey, second place is good, right? Yeah, until you realize they scored 33 goals in 44 games. That's like anti-hockey. In the 1953 playoffs, they made it to round 1, played the Canadiens. Want to know the combined score over 4 games? 16-3. I'm not joking. They scored 3 goals in 4 games. That's not a playoff series. That's a cry for help. During the original 6 era, from 1942 to 1967, they were 16, which means finishing last was basically a coin flip if you were bad. The Blackhawks finished last 10 times in those 25 years. That's 40% of the time. In the 1960s, they had legends. Hall, Mikita, Hall, Palat. They even won the Stanley Cup once in 1961. But did they finish first in the regular season with that group? Nope. They were a Stanley Cup champion in 1961, and they still couldn't break the curse. The curse laughed in their faces. This wasn't just bad luck. This was biblical. This was franchise sabotage. This was Muldoon getting booted out of the locker room saying, "I'll show you," and then dropping a spiritual elbow in the afterlife after 40 years. So yeah, it wasn't just a silly line muttered in a fit of rage. The curse of Muldoon wrecked this team's regular season reputation for nearly half a century. And even when they got close, they choked, or faded, or got run over by Canadians. And then finally, just before expansion saved them, they broke the curse. Sort of. Finally, in the 1966-67 season, the last season before the expansion, the Chicago Blackhawks, led by Bobby Hall, Stan Mikita, and Glenn Hall, finished first in the regular season. Finished first place in the NHL. Muldoon's curse? Over. right? Wrong! Because in typical Blackhawks fashion, they blow it in the playoffs. They got bounced in round one. Muldoon's ghost is laughing. So was the curse of Muldoon real? It depends on who you ask. Some hockey historians say it was made up by a reporter years later. Classic journalism. But others swear that Muldoon said it, believed it, and haunted the franchise like some Irish-Canadian ghost beyond the grave for 40 years. Also, side note, Pete Muldoon did tragically pass away at the age of 40 in 1929. The man never got to see how far this curse would go, but the story of Muldoon is stuck like gum to a shoe. Or the Blackhawks in the Central Division basement post-2017. So even after the Hawks' 3 cups in the 2010s, they still cannot escape their chaotic past. But that's what makes this team weirdly lovable, right? Chaos, drama, bad luck. And whether the curse of Muldoon was real or not, it gave the Blackhawks one of the strangest, most cursed starts in NHL history. But it also gave them a great story. And if you're a Hawks fan, you know this team doesn't do boring. So was the curse of Muldoon real? Or was it just a great piece of hockey folklore? Story 2. The banana curve. You ever look at a modern hockey stick and think, yeah, that looks normal? Well, guess what? It wasn't always like this. In fact, one time in the 1960s, 2 guys in the Chicago Blackhawks came up with a stick so illegal they had to make rules to stop them. This is the story of the banana curve and how Stan Mikita and Bobby Hull became the reason that your stick isn't shaped like a boomerang. Alright, 1950s, early 60s. Hockey is rough, old school, and a little bit boring offensively. Goalies don't wear masks, slap shots are rare, and most sticks are straight as an arrow. Stan Mikita and Bobby Hull, already stars for the Blackhawks. As the legend goes, Mikita accidentally breaks his stick, bending the blade. Let me try this anyway. Inside of his stick like it's possessed. Mikita and Hall start curving their sticks on purpose, like heating the blade with a propane torch. Shout out OSHA, bending them into these crazy arcs. Those weren't baby toe curves. Those were banana curves. Like U-shaped, cartoonishly warped, throwing the puck across the universe curves. And the results? Absurd. Bobby Hull's slap shot goes from crazy to what the hell was that? We're talking 120 miles per hour with no helmet goalies trying to guess what dimension the puck's gonna go. Now imagine you're a goalie in 1965. Your gear is made of old couch cushions. Your mask is basically a screen door. And here comes a guy with a rocket launcher for a stick, shooting a puck that curves in midair like a damn frisbee. Even their teammates didn't know where the puck was going. Stan Mikita once said, the puck would go in the air and just dance like a UFO at a Cold War airbase. Players start copying it. Youth players, beer league players, pro players. Suddenly, everyone's torturing their sticks like it's an episode in Forged in Fire. The NHL full-on panics. Goalies are terrified. Coaches are mad. Players are breaking the laws of physics. We can't have the people enjoying this much offense. By 1970, the NHL steps in and says, we've had enough. Enough. They implement a new rule. Stick blades can't curve more than half an inch. Yup. They actually measured how curved your stick blade. If it was more than half an inch, penalty. 2 minutes for too much swag. Of course, Bobby Hull is like, okay, fine. I'll just make a stick that flexes even more and shoots even harder. Because Bobby Hull is a cartoon character in real life. And Mikita, he dials in his curve, makes it legal, more accurate. He starts winning scoring titles and Lady Byng trophies. Because why not be elite and polite? Even with the rule changes, players push the limits. Refs carry rulers around, I'm not joking, to measure players' stick curves during the game. Stick curves. Get your head out of the gutter. The banana curve changed everything. Literally everything. It forced NHL to create stick regulations. It made slap shots deadly. It created the rise of more offensive defensemen. It basically set the blueprint for modern day players like Alex Ovechkin, Austin Matthews, and Cale Makar. Today's sticks, they all have curves. Toe, mid, heel, it's like a science now. Yeah, science. There's flex points, curved names, lie angles, but none of that exists without Stan Mikita and Bobby Hall lighting their sticks on fire like mad scientists. And even now, players still push it. Remember Marty McSorley or Willie Mitchell? Vlad Tarasenko even got called for it back in 2018. It's still a thing. But Hall and Mikita walked so Connor McDavid could dangle. So the next time you see a player rip a top shelf laser or curl a wrister like a heat-seeking missile, you can thank the Chicago Blackhawks. Thank a propane torch. Thank a broken practice stick. Thank the banana curve. Story 3. How the Chicago Blackhawks went from irrelevant to a dynasty. You think you know pain? You think you know what it's like to cheer for a losing team. Buddy, let me tell you about the early 2000s Chicago Blackhawks. A franchise that went from Original Six royalty to a punchline, a joke. A team that could barely even fit their own building despite having the largest stadium in the NHL. This is the story of the dark days of the Chicago Blackhawks and how they somehow crawled out of the abyss to become a dynasty. So let's set the scene. It's the late 90s. The Bulls are done. The Bears are rebuilding for the 600th time. And don't even ask me about Chicago baseball. But the Blackhawks? The Blackhawks, they're around. They exist. This was a team that hadn't won a Stanley Cup since 1961. They traded Chris Chelios to Detroit, the hometown hero. Jeremy Roenick, gone. Ed Belfour, gone. Tony Amani, gone. Steve Sullivan, Phil Housley, Doug Gilmour, all gone. This team hemorrhaged talent like it was a competition, and barely anyone was even watching the team on TV. Well, because they weren't. Imagine having the most prestigious arena in the league, the United Center, the UC, baby, and saying, nah, you gotta buy a ticket or you can't see the product. That's like Netflix saying you can only watch Stranger Things if you go to Blockbuster. What are we doing? So guess what happens when you don't show the games, trade all the players, lose 50 games a year, fans stop showing up? The Chicago Blackhawks were last in the league in attendance. The United Center holds over 20,000 people, and sometimes it felt like only 200 were there. The atmosphere was dead. The energy was gone. The team was a corpse. This is an Original Six team. This should be hockey's equivalent of the Yankees and Celtics. Instead, they were getting clowned by the Thrashers and Coyotes on a Tuesday night. And don't get me started on the drafts. From 1998 to 2005, the Blackhawks were a masterclass in missing. I mean, Cam Barker third overall when guys like Blake Wheeler, Ryan Callahan, and Mike Green were available? Barking up the wrong tree if you ask me. But to be fair, a glimmer of hope did occur in 2002 with the drafting of future Blackhawks legend Duncan Keith. But nobody knew he was a future Blackhawks legend at the time. Then in 2007, a lot changes. Ownership revamps the marketing, puts games on TV, reconnects with fans, and suddenly, the Chicago Blackhawks are back in the city's consciousness.
Hawks take on the rival Detroit Red Wings at the United Center. It all starts tomorrow night at 5:30 with Chevy Blackhawks pregame live.
Here's a chance and a shot by Taves, and he scores his first NHL goal in his first NHL.
The hockey gods reward them. Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, they arrived to save the city. By 2009, they're in the Western Conference Final. And the very next season, the Stanley Cup is back in the city of Chicago after 49 years. It's one of the greatest turnarounds in sports history, from being a joke, forgotten franchise, empty building, TV blackouts, disaster after disaster, to becoming a dynasty. 3 cups in 6 years, 2010, 2013, 2015. Hayes, Kane, Keith, Seabrook, Sharp, Hossa, Crawford, Chalmerson, legends. But you can't tell that story without the dark days. It's about the journey, not the destination. Because if you don't live through the garbage years of Mark Bell, Tyler Arneson, and Steve Passmore, yes, that's a real goal, then you can't appreciate how sweet the dynasty really was. So if you're a Hawks fan and only knows about the glory days, a bandwagoner, ask your older brother or sister what it was like in 2004. Ask them about the empty seats, the TV blackouts, the heartbreaks. Then go watch that 2010 Stanley Cup winning goal on a loop. So which of these three stories was your favorite? Comment it down below. For me personally, I have to go with the redemption story. I mean, it happened in my lifetime, so there's a bit of a bias there. But seeing a team go from the bottom to the top, nothing more satisfying in sports. Smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, picture this. It's 1926. The U.S. has just expanded to the United States. The U.S. Okay, all right. That's 3 failed reboots of Batman, 4 World Wars, Oh, 4 American Wars. Jesus Christ. But hey, second place is good, right? The Curse of Muldoon wrecked this team's regular season reputation for nearly half a decade. Because in typical Blackhawks playoff fashion, they not playoff fashion, this fashion. You know this team isn't boring. Like a UF. Okay. We should do a bloopers reel of these. Okay. Like a UFO in a Cold War airbase. Airbase. Ownership revamps the marketing, puts games on back TV.